All right, so thank you very much, Patrick, for being here today. Just a little background about you. You started Flyability almost 2 years ago, I think 1.5, 2 years ago, and it was initially an EPFL project, PhD project that you started, but you're going to talk a little bit more about that in the interview. So thank you so much for making time for doing this with us. I'd love to dive right into your story and your background, and then go through a couple of questions so we can really see where you're coming from and how you're building this, and the obstacles that you had and how you overcame them, etc., etc. So Patrick, tell us a little bit about your background, your personal background.
So I have a master's in microtechnology from EPFL. I completed in 2009. After that, I must say that I was more interested in the business side of things rather than doing too much bench work. So that's where I started my career in strategy consulting mostly. So I did 4 years working mostly pharma industry, food industry. After 4 years of consulting, it was time for me to stop to take a break. So I took a gap year traveling around the world, and that's at this point that I got together with Adrien, so my current co-founder, who was the basis of this at the inception of this PhD thesis that you talked about, and who was getting an amazing traction on his technology. So that's why we decided to get together and to start working on this project.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about that. How did you start Flyability, and what is it, and why did you actually start it?
Well, so why we started it was basically at the end of the PhD thesis, a video was put on YouTube showing the technology and a few use cases. You had the robot flying through the forest, and it was pretty much the first time a flying robot could fly autonomously through forests, colliding on trees and not falling. And there was an amazing response. There was 500,000 views of this video, and that's where we realized that there was really a high business opportunity, because following this video, it was the emails started flowing about people saying, okay, I want to buy this device. When is it ready? And we're like, oh, nothing is ready. It's just a research project. And after you answer 3 times that it's just a research project, you think about making it more than a research project, and that's why we started to work on this company. For the first 8 months, it was not a company; it was just 2 guys in an office at UPFL, trying to understand what it was all about, building a business.
Okay, so you basically went about it the whole like the other way around, but most people go about it. Most people try to create a product and sell it, but you did it the other way around. You created something, you saw that there's traction, and people came to you and said, where can we buy this thing? And that's kind of like where you decide, okay, there is an opportunity for this, and that's something that people want. So can you tell me a little bit more about what is that robot? Why is that so special?
So basically, it's the first robot that is able to tolerate collisions. Basically, it can collide on an obstacle in flight and just continue flying without crashing to the ground or without being disturbed by it. It's also a robot with a protective cage around, which makes it completely safe to fly close to people. Mm-hmm. So basically, it's a flying robot, yeah, like you've probably all seen one, but which you can fly in any place. If you've got people around, if you've got an area where you cannot avoid collisions, which is actually the case in any type of inspection when you're speaking about indoor inspection, about search and rescue, where you have to enter in a building in an unstructured places. So it's completely changing basically the field of application of flying robots, from an object that is made to fly high in the sky under GPS coverage to something that can come inside cities, close to people, inside buildings.
Okay. So you mentioned the video, the YouTube video with 500,000 views, and it seems like that's kind of like what started this whole journey, or at least one point that started this whole journey. So can you tell me a bit more about how did you get this off the ground from the start? Like how did this thing lead to the video, and what did the video do for you?
So having a prototype and having something to show is an amazing asset for a very young startup, and that's what we had at the beginning. We had this prototype. It was barely flying, but it was working. The technology was proven. there was a lot of work ahead to make it something that we could actually sell. But we had this in our hands. So when you go to investor, when you go to conferences, when you go to trade shows, you've got this prototype, and people will come to you if you're making a spherical flying objects bumping on your head. You'll get interest. So it was very, very instrumental for us to get this coverage, so that we could actually have a lot of potential customers, interested customers coming to us. So it greatly facilitated our early customer validation and customer discovery phases, because instead of having to go out and prospect people and send cold calls, cold emails to people who potentially were not the right ones, we had the right people directly coming to us. So it was an amazing chance that we had, that we continued to use throughout the life of our company, as we continued, putting videos out and going to as many places as we could to show the robot. Sorry about the noise. There was a robot flying in the neighborhood.
Well, that's perfect for the interview. It's great.
Right.
You're in the middle of the war zone.
Yeah,
you're in
absolutely.
the middle of the development center.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So, like, I just imagine, with every startup I talk to, there's always lots and lots of challenges at the beginning. What were some of the biggest challenges that you guys faced when you were starting the business, when you started growing, building the product and starting from scratch?
Well, first of all, the biggest challenge, which is still ongoing, is that it seems to be completely impossible to have a clear vision about how much resources you will need to get to the next stage. The first, when we started the project, we thought we were probably going to be able to be out on the market with a minimal product in about 6 months' time, with 2-3 employees. Now 17 people, and after a year and a half, we're still not there. So, and it's been forever increasing the amount of time and effort that it takes to make things move forward. So this is one of the first, I'd say, challenge or misconceptions that we had as young engineers. A second thing is, definitely hiring processes is really difficult. You hear all the time that it makes or breaks a startup, and so you're well aware of that. But while you're interviewing people, you're like, okay, well, is it the right guy? I don't have a 6 months to invest in with someone who's not going to be the right person. So how do I do this? So this was also and still is a major challenge. Apart from that, I would say the last thing I'm going to talk about is all the I would say all the paperwork that is involved in many steps along the process, whether it's raising money or getting certifications, or all along the way you start to have documents that require a legal background to be able to be understood, to be able to be drafted. You've got a clear idea of what you want to do from a business standpoint, and then you realize that it's not possible, right? It's not how it works, and then you end up from your 3 bullet points of intention, you end up with a 20-page contract, and that's actually wastes a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay. So let me quickly talk about the first one. Let's quickly talk about the first one. How do you deal with not being really able to project the future, or to predict the future?
Well, you give yourself milestones that you try to respect. While you set up your milestone, you already double the time that you think it's going to take, which is often a good ballpark estimate. So you fix a milestone 2 times farther in time than what you think you can deliver, and then you try to be really strict on meeting your the specification that you had for your milestone, so you don't under deliver, and you put yourself a lot of pressure to try to be on time. And anyway, as the business is changing all the time, and we discover new uses, we discover that what we thought customer wanted is not exactly what what customer wants. The specifications change and evolve along the way. So so you try to be very agile in setting up your milestones, but you don't give up on them.
Absolutely. So that I believe that comes with the second challenge, which is hiring the right people who are okay with agility and change and uncertainty and all of this. So talking about the second challenge of hiring, did you deal, or how do you deal with the challenge of hiring the right people?
Well, so we went through initially I'd say the standard channels. So we had ads on LinkedIn, ads on websites. We've got I had presence in the career fairs at the universities around the area. But I must say that what has proved the most efficient is always hiring people with whom you've had done business in the past, or you've had work with them. A large number of our employees are people who have been doing research projects with my co-founder in the past, or people with whom we have worked at a certain point in time.
Okay, good. What about the paperwork? How do you deal with all the administrative part? Like, do you outsource any of it? Are you like really good at delegating, or how do you deal with that?
We actually, as we were scouting for engineering interns, we got a guy saying, "Oh, I want to intern at your company," and he actually was a legal guy, coming from France. And like, what could we do with a guy like that? But we interviewed him, and in the end of the day, we hired him, and he's been really helping us a lot throughout the process. Cutting the costs a lot compared to going to get professional legal advice all the time, because after a while you stop doing it. It takes an email from your lawyer is going to cost you 500 Swiss francs. So there's a lot of questions that you don't ask, because you don't feel it's worth spending this type of money on making sure that, whereas you could also just go your own way and hope for the best. So having an in-house legal advisor helps a lot. Helps a lot for the contracts, for the certifications, and I would recommend a lot of startups to think about this type of internships. And I think startups are becoming more and more attractive to those people as well. So there's definitely a few candidates.
Okay, so do you know about that? Taking somebody in-house, do you feel that's just in your case a good thing because of all the questions that you had with the speciality of the business and licenses and everything, or do you think that a lot of startups would benefit from that from an early stage?
No, I actually think a lot of startups would benefit from that. In our case, we don't have a lot of very specific paperwork. The largest hurdle is hiring contracts, is sales contracts, is a CE certification, or things like that, which is very common to a lot of startups. So I don't think really it's something specific to us, and that would help probably a lot of entrepreneurs.
Okay, so there's a lot of tough times when you build a startup. It's not always that much fun. There's a lot of trouble and a lot of challenges. So how do you stay motivated during the tough times?
Well, first of all, being two co-founders helps a lot, because you always tend naturally to compensate the ups and downs of the other person. It also helps you to take a little hindsight with regards to your issues. And finally, as the whole team, having a team moving forward and doing new things every day, and discovering, making the product evolve, and getting new customers. This is so exciting that you tend to quickly, leave your issues behind and continue going forward. So other people would be probably my answer to this question.
Okay, so having other people around you and also constantly creating and progressing, and because if you think big, then small issues go away.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd love to talk about raising money now. You shared a little bit with me before. You got the venture kick. I think 130,000 was from venture kick that you got, but you also raised other investors. So you raised money from private investors. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, raising money. So we decided to go with mostly angel investors. So that's also very well corresponding to an early, say, seed stage of a startup. There's even though people always say that Switzerland's not a good place for looking for money, when you're talking about smaller, up to 1-2 million seed rounds and things like that, there's actually a quite a vibrant community of private investors who are usually either former entrepreneurs who made quite a lot of money and want to share their experience about entrepreneurship, or people who come from wealthy families and have a personal interest in helping young businesses and being part of the adventure and the excitement that goes together with a startup. So there's quite a lot of those people. We met them at by pitching at lots of events organized by around EPFL, mostly going and accepting basically all the invitations we had to present our company during the first 6 months. So that's where we got in touch with a lot of people and continuing discussing with them, inviting them to our offices to show us how we work, how we were moving forward. At the beginning, our office was basically maybe 7 square meters with 5 people inside, so it was not very glamorous, but it was enough to show them the reality of what we were doing. And at a certain point in time, you start to really once you close the deal, and you start working with a lawyer, issuing the paperwork, and that's where you basically spread to all your followers the fact that you're actively now looking for money and that it's time for them to move forward with you. And then it's a long game of arguing over the small fine print of the contracts until you've got you weed out the people who were just there looking, and you start working with people who are going to be your partners, and usually will stay like that for quite a long time in the company, because it's people who put at first a little money and then follow on in the subsequent rounds. So that's our situation right now. We've got only 4 private investors that have been helping us from the beginning, and that will very likely continue investing in the company as it grows.
Okay, so when about the topic of raising investors, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the beginning with that topic?
Well, in the beginning, you just don't understand the game really well, because you're at the same time very excited about showing your technology, but that's not really what they're after. They're not completely, financial investors who are only motivated by a financial return in the short run. And anyway, the financial forecast of a 6-month-old startup is it's not very useful. So the initial challenge is to understand what they want to hear and what type of relationship you should have with them. At the same time, they're your bosses. They've got the money, and they have an important decision power on your startup. On the other hand, they are advisors and partners helping you out, and also they are not your business much better than they do. So you have to take the decisions and make the calls. So it's kind of a difficult, I'd say, balance to find in the beginning to see, who should those guys be to me, and then it depends also from one investor to the other. In a pool of investors, you'll have people who are very, very hands-on and that will spend a lot of time with you, and some people who will just send you an email every 6 months saying how are things doing, glad it's fine, talk to you next year, basically.
Okay. So how did you identify the right investors for you?
It's through those frequent meetings that we had early on with quite a lot of people that we were discussing with, and we were talking to. We were asking advice. We were asking for introduction at some other with some other people, and basically the people who invested were the people who were the most efficient in this process and the most helpful to us in getting us putting us in contact with other entrepreneurs, potential customers, and people also who we understood had been through this process before and were totally able to guide us in the process.
Mm-hmm. So talking about that, what's your opinion or what's your perspective on smart money? On getting investors on board to also what is
smart money is you should when you're looking for investors, you're looking for money, and you should be very honest about that, because if you're looking for advice, you can find it in many different places, and especially you can buy it as well, if you need a specific expertise. So I don't think that looking for really an investor who is completely, for example, needing someone who has contact in your target market is necessary as an investor, and calling it smart money, or someone who has a distribution channel in place that would be relevant for you. It can probably even be dangerous when locking you out of the planning phase where you might be considering other options instead of going through the easy route. But having investors who are able to support you, like my investors, I can call them pretty much any time and ask questions about stock option plans and sales contracts, exclusivity contracts, things like that. And I do this almost every week, and they are very, very helpful. So smart money should mean smart investors and investors who have experience in the business and a very well-functioning brain to help you solve issues. But you should not necessarily aim at people who are a perfect fit in terms of background to your market. That's my experience so far.
Okay, interesting perspective. So, like when it comes to the investors, what do you feel are the most important things to look for then, if it's not like maybe the perfect background? What do you feel is the right thing, the right fit?
Well, you should start working with them before they're investors, and you'll very quickly see with whom you're interested in working, and with whom it's just too tedious and inefficient. Going through and reviewing the term sheets and shareholder agreement is already an interesting task. So you learn a lot on those people and on how your board meetings are going to go as you progress through these very initial tasks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you basically say, okay, in order to really know who's the right investor, you better do something with them before, maybe talk to them about advice or anything like that, which gives you a better idea of if they're a right fit, if they're a good fit for, if they tick the right way and things like that. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent, good. So, just once again on that topic, how did you get in touch with those guys? Like, that's very, very often that's kind of a challenge that a lot of startups have. Like, how do I even talk to those guys?
Yeah, it's quite hard to say, because I don't always know where they come from. But when you're close to the EPFL, or it's probably the same at ETH in Zurich, you tend to have a lot of events centered around innovation, around startups, around pitching contests, about competition. Actually, the venture kick competition is also a place where lots of angel investors are sitting in the jury, and may contact you following your pitches, whether you win or not. And that's a good initial source. And then people know each other, and they will bring their friends to the deal, and they tend to. Active investors have co-invested with a lot of other people, so they also know who they work well with, and that's how it builds up, I think. We tried also tried going to see venture capitalists at a certain point in time. That was quite interesting. So yeah, we got nice opportunities to pitch VCs in the US. We were definitely not ready for that, I would say, in terms of how much money we were looking. With being in Switzerland, you probably need quite a big investment for it to make sense to go to someone abroad, and for this person abroad to take the time to invest in you. And that was a very different relationship that we had with those people. But that was also very very insightful to see how those people will dedicate 5 minutes of their time to you, being 200% focused, and it's completely amazing how, as they're seeing hundreds of deals per month, they tend to be to understand what you're about, what's your business, and what's your issues in a split second, and they just push exactly where it hurts, and you feel that they're very, very professional on this side. So it's a very interesting difference between the interactions we had with our business angels.
Okay. So one of the things you said before, it seems like that you're not always talking to the investors directly, who then became the actual investors, but it was more of a developing a network and then expanding, and kind of like introduction led to an introduction led to an introduction. So it was kind of more like an organic thing. You talk to lots of people who made introductions, who brought in their friends, brought in their colleagues, right?
Right, and that's why one thing we did, and we're very happy we did, was being very open from the start. Some startups have to or wish to maintain a stealth mode where they don't, they hide what they're doing, and they don't talk about it externally, etc. It can be a good thing, but it will make your probably your fundraising quite more difficult, because you will have to reach out to people who don't know you, who've never heard about you, and that will require a lot of effort. Whereas if you're showing things to the world, and for us, flying our robots around in as many places as we could for the first month, it was fairly easy to start building this network.
Okay. Because I'd like to talk about relationships or other people. So who do you go to for guidance, and why those people?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to realize that you're very often alone in the end of the day, and that's you should take advice for what it is, which is really advice and ideas that will challenge your own mind to take the right decisions. In the beginning of the startup, we were very I'd say fairly distracted by that, because we had this network of people that we were trusting, and that were quite experienced, and we were asking those questions, how where should we start? Should we do that or that? And 10 people, 10 different answers. So we're coming back home just being much more lost than we initially were, and it took us some time to really realize that, and to get to know the people, to get to know their line of thoughts, so that you take your own decisions, and you only really go outside and seek advice to broaden your ideas that tend to get a little too narrow as you work 100% on your project, and you stop thinking about the alternatives, and that's a great way to do that. So when we do this, we go a lot to our to our current investors. I would say that this is what we've got as a advisory board. We also have our part of the CTI program, where we've got a coach helping us out.
Okay. So you talked a lot about the support system of EPFL, and I heard a lot about great things about it, and ETH as well. So for startups who are outside of those support systems, what would you recommend in terms of getting to meet the right people?
Well, I think getting close to this environment of this EPFL or environment is not something that is exclusive for EPFL startups. It's a place where naturally a lot of innovation comes from. So all the right ecosystem is around those schools, but you don't need to have necessarily a tech from those schools. It definitely helps. It's one of the very important credibility points that you have in the beginning. It's a technology that was developed at EPFL. It was a patent from EPFL. Investors are usually quite reassured about that. If you still go to the same people and say, I'm not. It's an EPFL technology, but neither were a lot of other startups, and still take advantage of this ecosystem to grow. And I know quite a few startups who absolutely no Swiss higher education background, which did quite well in this ecosystem.
Okay, excellent. So it's not just exclusive for EPFL graduates. It's more of an open support system. Excellent. Okay. So, another question that I have, how do you feel? How important have been building relationships in this whole process of raising money for you, and also in the whole process of growing the business?
Well, building relationship with investors is key, of course. I mean, if you don't have a relationship, you don't have an investor, you don't have a contract. So the person really has to like you and to like what you're doing to invest in your business. So this is it's completely key, and it's the same for any aspect really. It's the same for your employees. It's the same for your customers. Especially as an early stage hardware startup, your first customers will sometimes have to face issues, and the thing is broken, the thing doesn't work anymore, and if you don't have a very strong relationship with him and showing you've been having dinner with him several times and you understand each other, it will probably go bad and they will ask for a refund. But if you know them well, they will just say, "Hey, come on, this thing doesn't work. Please come and fix it." And you jump in plane, and the relationship is saved. So it's been really instrumental to build relationship with everyone around us.
Okay, so the last question that I have to you is, knowing what you know now after almost 2 years of building all of this, if you had to start all over again, what would you do differently?
I think it's too early for me to I yet don't see anything we did that was a major mistake that put us really way behind. Of course, we'd take a lot of shortcuts. We'd save a lot of time taking shortcuts, avoiding circling around, doing 20 iterations of shareholder agreements and things like that. But in the end of the day, I think we're following a fairly good process of building a product, testing it out on the market, and getting the feedback from customer and learning from that. That's what we've been doing from day one. That's what we're still doing right now. And overall, I think it works really well.
Okay, so it's basically this idea of the lean startup, I guess, having an MVP, and also testing it before actually putting the whole working product together and trying to sell it. Go to people, talk to as many potential customers as you can, as early on as possible, just to see if things resonate, just to see if this is actually right up market opportunity, right?
Absolutely, you don't have a chance. You don't have enough resources to launch a product twice. Basically, we've got one launch; it has to work well enough to finance the second launch. If we stay in our office and develop a product which we don't know if it's fit for the market, we'll probably fail. So especially as we are working in a fairly new market, it's a market which is still in infancy, where there's no reference of who are the typical customers, what is the typical channel, what is the typical price. We have to test everything, and we're testing distributors, direct sales, high price, low price, industrial customers, prosumer customers, and all of this is just a process of learning and making sure that we also listen to the feedback that we get and manage to read between the lines of what we get from our field tests.
All right. So thank you so much for doing this interview with me, Patrick. It was really a pleasure doing it. So just the last question, really, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
So the easiest is our website, flyability.com. You've got all our contact details on there. You can also follow us on Twitter. It's fly_ability. We're posting a lot of great pictures as we do field tests. We've got some very interesting field testing in the coming months. So yeah, I'd be happy to have you guys be in touch with you guys.
Excellent. So Patrick, thanks again for doing this, and have a wonderful weekend.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.